I'm a doctor, if you use titles, Dr. Altuna Akalin. I'm working as head of bioinformatics at Max Delbrück Center in Berlin, which is a molecular medicine research institute, has 800 researchers over close to 90 research groups. And my lab develops AI methods plus software that fuses different modalities of data. In the end, we infuse clinical data, omics data, biological data to support decision making in clinics. So we launched recently an AI tool to help with referral, triage, emergency department triage, and diagnostics. So we published a paper, there's a demo out, and we are trying to deploy this in hospitals to measure real life accuracy. This is something we care about. We have released another tool on matching patients to clinical trials for oncology. And so basically I've been working in intersection of machine learning biology since early 2000s. Published over 80 papers, one textbook on computational biology. So doing research close to more than 20 years on these fields, which is now becoming more and more interesting because of generative AI.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I want to dive into that in a sec. But in terms of how it's funded and the motivations and everything like that, it sounds like obviously heavily research back and needs based. Tell me more about like that structure, how it gets into the just taking it from beyond the theory and the research side into the practical application of it.
So, I mean, the motivation comes from, of course, research problems that the institute is involved in, or we are involved in, which is mostly about molecular medicine. So it's mostly about genomics, genetics, those type of things. But we are also moving into integrating clinical imaging with those modalities now, because the modalities are increasing and we need to also the capacity now is increasing to integrate all those different areas to make more concrete decision-making tools. And also in personal life, so of course, like everybody else, we have health problems in the family, etc. That motivates me to work on these problems a bit more and moving into health tech a bit more than, let's say, my colleagues, which are mostly molecular, but I want to fuse different modalities to make better decision-making tools. I think that's my primary aim, and that's why we are moving heavily into generative AI, its applications, how it can be used to fuse data, deploy this on clinics, measure real-life accuracy. So we can always collect the retrospective accuracy, but we are never sure these large models have seen the data or not, even though we are using supposedly data sets that are not accessible to large language models, but you never know. So we really want to deploy this, measure accuracy in real life, also measure the tendencies of the users. So in this case, either patients or doctors, what type of interface they like to interact with. This is also very important, because when you deploy clinical studies involving doctors, sometimes you get, they don't want to do extra work. If it's like extra typing and stuff, it's beyond their comfort zone or time limits. So we are also looking into this interface problem, figuring out what's the best interface for both patients and doctors to use such tools, what is non-blocking, what's easy to use. So these are still research questions, but not on the technical side maybe so much. It's just
they're important though. I feel like that's, as you kind of pointed out, that's where a lot of these kind of applications fall down in the practical use side, is that the humans still need to do the pointing the thing on where it needs to go. I started thinking though, as you were talking, because like in areas that are, you've got to be pretty clever to know about, like on the omics side and the AI piece and the pulling elements together and crunching a lot of big data. I sometimes think with some of these research programs or just the application of some of these tools, sometimes it's very clever people that are doing things because it's like a pretty cool idea versus like, and wouldn't that be cool if we could make it do this? But then in the end, it's kind of like, well, it's got to solve a problem, obviously, and like, so where are you seeing those biggest gaps? Like, we just can't do what we wanted to, like, need to do in the healthcare system right now, the way we do it, and so we're creating some of these, more innovative technologies in order to address that issue.
We also come into this problem late 2010s, because we were doing, I think, one of the first deep learning methods to fuse data. At the time, there was not so much data around, and it was a cool research problem, but the applications were not there yet.
Yeah.
So this we come to it all the time. So, and the incentives are not aligned in industry and research sometimes, because in research, I think we had a big push on biomarkers and understanding why this happens, etc. But when we took these solutions to pharma, they were not so much interested in biomarkers. Even sometimes we got, especially for cancer, we got pushback. If you find biomarkers early on and then you decrease the patient population, then you can't sell drugs anymore that are, that are at the time eligible for a large population because they don't need biomarkers. But if you don't know, then you come say, I have this, and you need to have this and this biomarker to be for the drug to be efficacious on the patient, then we got a lot of pushback. So I think the incentives sometimes are aligned, industry and research, that is clear. But also I think research also doesn't have so much contact points with actual translation. So you need doctors on the loop, and also you need technology developers or other business partners that are also have a say, because you can solve a problem for a particular doctor, but in the end it may not be a business case. It's still for him or for that subpopulation it's an interesting thing, but then in the larger subpopulation or larger population there's no buyer for that kind of tool. So I think the idea that the doctors and industry come together earlier in terms of idea generation to the research, I think that will help a lot. Usually it's an afterthought for researchers. They did something cool and they're now looking for an application, which doesn't translate so often. I think that's we and others face this, and this is the biggest, I think, gap, as you pointed out earlier.
A hammer looking for nails, right? But then lastly, so you're up on stage somewhere, right, here at HealthTech. Tell us a little bit more about what you're sharing with the audience today.
Yeah, I think the session will be about how AI is helping with diagnostics. So we have some experience, other panelists also have some experience. So the idea was, I think the general question would be, what do we need to build AI models to make diagnostics or AI diagnostics happen? Where are the sort of friction points? How can we improve this? So I think we'll touch on those things, so from both technical side and also deployment side. So there will be people talking about deployment. I'll be talking about maybe on the tech side. But I think this, as we just talked about, so if you have a great technology, it solves some problems, but if you didn't think about the user interface or your usability, then it becomes a problem in terms of deployment. And that's also another thing that we should think about. You have great tech, works, accurate, even FDA approved, but if you have an interface that's hard to use for the doctors or the patients, it takes time, it's complicated, then that's, I think, deal breaker for many cases.
Yeah.